Alright, response video to another bit of propaganda yeah, from one of the MushaMentalists. MushaMentalists? Yeah, call them that. Anyway, conference report. Okay, using how people use language as an indicator of somehow validity or character of hardness, integrity of people's beliefs, and essentially trying to pigeonhole or categorize, somehow blend together the idea of fundamentalist religion with fundamentalist scientist. So if you're too fundamentalist, if you establish a principle and build on that, build a building kind of idea, something solid. And so, but discounted in this is anything like rational, like recognizing that the bell curve of intelligence can totally duplicate the curve of this belief system. Yes, there's a few wacky retards on the fundamentalist end on religion, and they're dumb as sticks. And then there's this big mushy bell of bullshit, convenientism, let's call it. The human animal takes over and says, I don't like that God because he has a personality and a psychology and he's crazy. And I don't like the truth because that doesn't say I'm cool. So I'm going to float around in this bullshit. And then there's people at the other end, the high end, who say, okay, I have to recognize certain principles. There's a reality here to be described, and I'm going to try to honestly describe it because that's what somebody rational does. And I'll accept my responsibility as an intelligence to apply intelligence, not convenience or self-interest or some other bullshit, so I can make myself a narrative to live by. Yeah. So it's really just about bullshit. And yeah, most people want bullshit. They want a fucking lie. And that's it. Yeah. But anyway, it's just another way to insult people. It doesn't have anything, or to degrade the ideas of people by using some superficial crap and pretend you're doing something else. Like, he even uses metaphors of like gay bashing, where people would call weak arguments, pussy or womany or, pansy or, whatever, faggoty. And, but he's doing the same thing here. He's trying to label people as if they're bullies and harsh and, they all the negative, the same negative metaphors for somebody fundamentalist, scare words, and it's just a slander. That's all it is. There's no correlation. There's no real, deep, meaningful connection between religious fundamentalists and people who truly seek, honestly, a truth. Because the dishonesty of religion is, on its face, obvious. Really, 2,000-year-old fairy stories that you can't make any distinction between one fairy story and another fairy story. Any religious fundamentalist who won't concede, oh, well, that's a problem. God should have come up with a better plan than this, because that's just not going to work. How can I sell a book of fables in a sea of fable books? And they won't concede that. And so that's a huge difference. But that's an intelligence difference, right? You have to be intelligent to realize you can't come to the party with something that preposterous and say, look, everybody accept this crap because I say so. The book says so. Yeah, no. That's a little bit short of what's necessary. So anyway, we'll play half this crap.
About solid knowledge. They will give an inordinate amount of investment, of time, of credence.
Right. Inordinate by what? Your standard, right? So yes, they give an inordinate amount of time in their argument to trying to explain that, look, this is how logic works. It builds, okay? There's a certain process you go through. All right? You learn A, B, C, and then you move on to D, E, F, and you work your way up, and you incrementally, first you start off with 2 plus 2, and then you do calculus sometime later. Yeah. But it's an inordinate amount of time to have to explain how to think first, because most people can't do that properly because they're too busy rewriting, okay, the rules to their convenience. They're too busy with their eraser trying to get rid of the facts they don't like.
That idea that knowledge has to be hard in order to be valid. And other things go along with that. So
yeah, that's right. Facts have to be supported by evidence. That's how they gain this hardness thing that we're talking about, right? That's how they gain their integrity, their mass, their weight, is to have something behind them called evidence. And yes, so there's people arguing in defense of facts that have huge amounts of evidence supporting them versus theories and bullshit that has no evidence behind it and has in fact a whole big pile of counter evidence that is basically pointing out that you can't just show up with a stupid story and say believe it or else.
but knowledge has to be permanent. It's a feature of hard things like rocks, that they tend to be permanent. Well-bounded, that kind of idea.
Yeah, that's right. Well-bounded, that kind of idea. The house is the house. The house isn't made out of gingerbread. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is just so revealing. I mean, what the hell are you talking about here? Either you're trying to describe reality or you're not.
Non-mutable over time, they don't change.
Yes, well, reality doesn't change. There's a truth. There's an actual history that did happen, and you can describe the actual history. You can be honest to it, or you can be dishonest to it. Okay, that's the option. The evidence is there. You can, what you're going to turn it into. What is somebody supposed to say? You should try to turn it into something? No, you should be trying to figure out exactly what did happen.
The heavy metaphors play into that quite a lot. So there is a group of people who use those a lot. And then there's another group of people who don't use them so much, or use them as in part of a more extended idea.
A more extended idea, like not reality, but super reality. The extended idea that we don't need no stinking facts. The extended idea that, fuck that, it's no fun. What's in it for me? 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 Yeah, that's the fucking bell on the bell curve. What's in it for me? No integrity, just duplicity, hypocrisy, and convenience. I will now rationalize getting. Period. 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 I will now fuck the facts. I will fuck the truth. I will play games with words so I can get what I fucking want, which is to live in fairyland, because I get to get laid there.
To do with substances. The second group of people will not place anything like the same significance and importance on facts being always solid, and that the only facts that are viable.
Well, I mean, really, what's the point? Why call something a fact that doesn't have a hardness to it, that doesn't have a legitimacy to it? Let's talk about non-factual facts. Let's talk about changeable facts. Let's talk about, I mean, come on, what would be the point of that? What's the point of having the word fact, right? Because you're just going to run the fuck away from the reality. The world isn't really a sphere in space. No, let's just make up some kind of crap that it's going to change. It's going to go flat. No, it isn't.
Think about are the ones that are permanent and fixed and don't go away and are clearly bounded, have all those kind of features that solid objects like rocks tend to have.
Yeah, you're right. And most of this discussion revolves around a theory called evolution. That's where most of all of this hinges, okay? This whole idea of what pushes you on one side of the bell or pushes you on the other side of the bell is this idea of evolution, right? this theory that we evolved from lower forms of life, that we weren't created by a designer god, that the whole fucking game wasn't built by something intelligent to produce something magnificent like human singularity or something. That isn't the function of the game, that the game is a replicating molecule, and it's evolved toolkits for the little gladiators to beat the shit out of each other to try to steal each other's energy. And that's the reality. So, yeah, you fall on one side of that truth or you fall on the other side of that truth, but you can't have it both ways. It's not half true, it's not a little bit true. It's either true or it's not true. Alright, and clearly you don't want to have to make this terrible, awful decision. You don't want to have to come down on one side or the other. You want to just play in this fake ground where when it's convenient, you'll say it's not true. When it's convenient, you'll say it's true. So whatever the decision is, you'll just sit there and say, well, I'll undo this truth when I need to. And then when I want it, when I need it to fight off the fundamentalist kooks, you know, the religious fundamentalists, oh, well, then all of a sudden it'll be true hard. And so you're the one just totally manipulating reality, totally manipulating our knowledge and intelligence for your own purposes. Manipulating MushaMentals.
The second group of people will also tend to use metaphors of lightness, of airiness, of liquidity, of gaseousness. May use words like spiritual occasionally. Very different. So there does seem to be a difference there.
Yeah, right. So, the religious types will talk about heaven, and the atheist types will talk about their singularity. Yeah, exactly. Lying, bullshit.
But the difference, as I say, does not correlate with atheism and theism. No, on the contrary, it doesn't. Theism...
Right, it correlates with intelligence, remember. Intelligence. Religious fundamentalists at the far end of the retard scale, and, theorizers who accept evolution at the other end of the scale. And all you little mushy cruds in the middle. Indecisive, mushy cruds.
Theists, as a whole, people who say they believe in God or have some kind of faith tradition behind them or faith practices.
Yeah, so it's all about tradition and practices. It's not about the fucking truth. And that's exactly what's being revealed here. Fuck the goddamn truth. It's all about our addictions and practices, right? So traditions are just addictions. And practices are what? Wanking. So we'll just call it addictive wanking. There, that's all you are. That's all it really is. That's all. You're just self-glorifying, self-gratifying monkeys, okay? You get a little bit of intelligence, and all you do is scheme with it, and you're scheming yourself a world that makes you gods and kings and wondrous animals and beautiful and artistic and creative. You're all so fucking brilliant. Yeah, right. And the truth is, you're in a fucking turd asylum, and you're eating shit. And you're laying eggs in it, which makes you even a more disgusting fucking bug.
Are equally divided in those who use solidity metaphors and hardness metaphors, and those who use lightness, spiritual, fluffy kind of metaphors. And atheists are the same. There are those who use the hardness metaphors and assert hard facts and value those perhaps inordinately. And then
okay, right. So you value a fact inordinately. So the fact of evolution can totally be over appreciated. And that atheists, the hard atheists have totally over appreciated the fact of evolution. Yeah, that's right. That's why we live in a world where we're still eating animals. Is because people have totally overappreciated the fact of evolution and haven't recognized that, yeah, like tyrannosauruses or like any other cockroaches or any other organism that would have acquired intelligence first, that, yeah, we have to change our behavior. Duh.
there are others who place less significance on the sole importance of the hardness of a fact. And will use those metaphors a lot.
Yeah, right. Less importance on the reality of reality because they don't want to live in reality. Period. There's no other reason not to take reality seriously except for convenience. There's no logical reason to say, oh, this is where the evidence points, but fuck that. Yeah, there's no reason to do that unless you have an incentive to fuck it. A personal incentive, the opposite of objective. So he throws a little line in here about objective that let's not forget. Oh, I forgot to include in this video, but those of a fundamentalist mindset also tend to use the word objective more. Make of that what you will. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. So we now don't even have a distinction between a story that somebody has aggrandized with their personal fish story bullshit, like, yeah, it was the biggest goddamn fish in the goddamn ocean and I fought it for 74 hours, and the truth. Objective. You know, without personal perversion or bias. There's only two elements to objective or absolute truth, right? It's the completeness of the evidence and whether or not you've distorted the evidence. That's it. That's all there is. So objective is like absolute. It is what you should be aspiring to. Like perfection. There's no reason not to aspire to it. There's no reason not to take a road that might lead somewhere close to it. It's not a fucking bad thing, retards. It's a fucking good thing. An objective, okay, disciplined, responsible, absolute. These are things that are good things if you can have them, if you can get them. The fact that you think they are negative things because retards use them, because a retard can pick up a goddamn, a micrometer. Does that mean micrometers are now evil because retards are using them to scrape, letters in the wall? Ugh, fuck.
Right, some will use, as I say, liquid gaseous tunnel metaphors. So those things don't, as I say, don't correlate with atheism and theism. But they do correlate again with fundamentalism. It's a great word, fundamentalism. Fundamental means base. It indicates something that's at the bottom, something on which you build.
Right, but again, let's understand the distinction between the fundamentalist scientist and the rationalist, logicist, and the fundamentalist illogicist. Okay, fuck anything rational in terms of a foundation for belief, and let's just accept a book of Babel. And so those two things you're saying are the same. They are of the same character. And I think that's just a preposterous slander. They're the two extremes, the extreme theism, the extreme rationality. You want to use a negative language. You want to turn the extreme rationalist into somehow a negative force. You want to turn the thing that has applied the most energy to analyzing the truth most extensively, who has read the fucking Bible, has read the science books, the biology books, has done the fucking hard work, and you want to throw that person who has extensive knowledge, and you want to throw them in the same category as the imbeciles who haven't even read their own goddamn book. And certainly haven't read a science book. Certainly haven't read any alternative theory of reality. And you want to throw them in the same category because you want to discount the rigidity of that linear path. You want to pretend that somehow the truth is on this bell curve of compromise where we self-interest the truth into shit. Fucking Ronald Reaganism.
And there's a lot of correlation, as far as I can see, between both atheists and theists who use hardness metaphors, who use metaphors of solidity, and those who we might think of as fundamental. Because it's part of the same metaphor structure, isn't it?
But of course it's going to be, right? Because they're exact opposite theories of reality. So of course, exact opposite theories of reality are going to have people who are going to be more or less convinced and people who are going to be more and less willing to compromise the truth. Now, we obviously know that the fundamentalist theist doesn't give a fuck about evidence, and that the fundamentalist science is completely obsessed with evidence, theoretically. That is their devotion, is the evidence. And this is the huge distinction between these two groups, and yet you're going to just throw them into the same category, and you're going to pretend the intellectual is the retard. Because it's convenient to your manipulation. It's convenient to you saying, let's not deal with reality. Instead, let's pretend the fundamentalist the fundamentalist religious person isn't a retard, and let's pretend the scientist is.
Same schema, as it's sometimes called. If something's hard and heavy and weighty and clearly bounded like a rock, it tends to be at the bottom. This is the rock on which I build my church, I think Peter said, if you'd find it in religious terms.
And what are you building? Again, what is this is the mush that I build my convenience boat to go rowing through the cesspool? Well, what the hell is your objective here? What the hell are you building here? You're building nothing, correct? You're just saying, let's be dumb monkeys. Let's not elevate ourselves out of any of this stuff by standing on some rocks. Let's not throw some rocks in the cesspool and build ourselves a point of view from which maybe we can extract ourselves from this circumstance. No. Let's instead throw rocks in the cess and watch the cess wave and then pretend we can see the magic boat of Equinox in the waves in the cess. You want metaphors? Is this what just all metaphors? Is that all you people have?
But they also find it in a certain kind of fundamentalist, scientistic, that kind of end of it.
Yeah, scientistic. Now they're scientisticists. Oh, fuck.
And a kind of overweening attachment to rationalism. You do find
overweening attachment to rationalism. Oh my God, what a fucking disgusting thing to do. Don't be rational. No, let's be irrationalists. I mean, what the fuck? There's no alternative to rational. You're rational or you're an asshole. A hard, disgusting, putrefied asshole.
in those kind of circles as well, as a desire to be down to earth, as a rock solid idea.
Right, and the opposed to the opposite, which is stumbling, floating. Let's just walk off the cliff and like Wile E. Coyote, and we'll just wait for reality to catch up with us and throw us down to the rocks below. But for a while, we'll just sit there and wonder. Look, we're standing in the middle of nowhere. Isn't it interesting? What gets accomplished this way? Oh, that's right, absolutely nothing. Yes, you'll continue to poo like a monkey and drool like monkeys, but you won't get anything else done.
Fundamentalism as well, because things that are foundations, things that are at the bottom, things on which you want to build, are usually solid and hard. So it's as I say, it's part of the same metaphor. You also find kind of evidence of this in the way that insults work, and for me, I've just kind of run this through my imagination as a kind of test of the hypothesis. When people who are fundamentalist, or people who use hardness metaphors a lot, or have this kind of attachment to a kind of singular truth, when they want to insult the opposition, they almost always use fluffy lightness metaphors.
Right, and the opposite is somebody will use other kinds of, well, yeah, cement head. Oh yeah, that's a lightness metaphor. I mean, I've probably called fundamentalists cement heads more than any other kind of thing. Fundamentalist religious. So yeah, the fundamentalists I call cement heads, and then the floaters, yeah, you just call them what? What is there? Hypocrites? yeah. Well, what else? What word do I use? Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're going to be words for mushiness, mushy, silly, childish. Dollywood.
They would accuse their opposition of being airy-fairy, of being spacey, of having their head in the clouds, of not having their feet on the ground, of being fluffy, of all that kind of panoply of
yeah, of confetti, of bullshit, of useless, unconnected particulation, useless mush. Pretty color, rainbow.
terms like that. And associated with that, they're often feminizing insults. So it tends to be associated with girly, faggoty, gay, pinkness, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of those kind of highly gendered kind of insults appear when people who are of a fundamentalist, hard kind of facts mindset want to...
Yeah, well, again, so it's not facts mindset for the religious bastards, and I don't think they use the same metaphor, so I don't think you can back that up. I don't think your research can back that up, okay? So go ahead, show me. Show me the fundamentalist religious people who are using the feminized rhetoric.
Want to insult the opposition. It's a gendered insult, bringing out some of those kind of less solid aspects of substances. And conversely, when those in the stratosphere of fluffiness want to insult their fundamentalist brethren, they would often use...
they'll use the word fundamentalist. Again, as if it's a derogatory thing, as if it's the wrong thing to do. Okay, because we have used this word to describe a theism that is unyielding, okay, but not based on any fundamental logic, just built on a fundamental dogma, you're going to put these other people who have done exactly the opposite, who have used fundamental principles to acquire a fundamental understanding, a rock-solid understanding. You're going to put these two people in the same category. And somebody's supposed to say something other than that that's revolting and disgusting? Yeah.
Overly masculizing insults. Or insults which draw upon masculine stereotypes to do with an over-conservative practicality or instrumentality, or dogmatism, or black and white thinking, or those kind of areas. So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about with that, the relationship between fundamentalism and whatever the opposite of fundamentalism is. I haven't found a word for it. If you can think of a word for it, that would be great.
Right. It's not going to be anything that has anything to do with anything reasonable, that's for goddamn sure. Because guess what? The only rational way you can understand how we acquire logic, or how we acquire information, or how we acquire or build anything of value is through some fundamental process. You have to build foundations. You have to build on top of those. And people who are going to do it backwards, or in some other manner, it's not going to be a word that's flattering. So whatever you're going to end up calling yourselves, it's not going to be a good word.
Yeah, so the opposite of that. Just that it seems, as far as I can see, it's part of a coherent metaphorical schema by which we understand the world, bring understanding to our experiences. And some people...
Yeah, well, whatever. Some of this stuff ain't metaphors anymore. So again, we don't need metaphors to describe evolution anymore. We can do it with facts. We can describe the process. We can say things about it that are true. And especially if the more careful we are, the more valid that process will be. But I mean, that's what we can do. We don't need metaphor.
Who we might call fundamentalists are those who are also attached to metaphors of hardness, metaphors of fixity and firmness, and largely building metaphors of structure in which the edifice of knowledge is built upon certain clearly firm foundations.
The structure of knowledge, you could say. It's not really just an edifice. It's the whole building. The edifice is a religious metaphor, right? It's all show, and there's nothing behind it. There's all just a bunch of unfulfilled and unsatisfied promises. It's all just a sugar coating. I'll give you this, justice, and it doesn't give you anything. It's just a lie. A disgusting, stupid, ignorant lie.
Which they would claim they have particular access to, whether they be religious fundamentalists in which the properly basic ideas are found.
Yeah, well, yeah, so another huge distinction, access to. Did you hear what he just said there, right? So we know where scientists are going to show you their evidence. They're going to show you exactly how they understand what they understand. They're going to tell you, this is exactly why I believe what I believe. Here's every little thought, every little neural connection. And the religious fuck is going to say something like, God spoke to me. You know, he played with my willy once. You know, he molested me, but it was really good. What? They're going to have some sort of crap like, well, you just haven't had a real experience yet. You haven't been fucked by God, right?
And in Scripture, or whether they be atheist, rationalist fundamentalists, in which the fundamental principles lie at the heart of nature. So yeah, thanks very much for attending.
Yeah, so again, let's just get this clear. So, quite obviously, there's a huge difference between the fundamentalist theist and Albert Einstein. Huge difference. Why play this game? Why pretend that the two extremes are anything like each other? They're two extremes for this reason. They're 180 degrees away from each other. All right, and it's just silly to say they have something in common. What has something in common are the mushy masses in the middle, who have compromised, who will accept nothing because it's not convenient. So this is your triad of the pyramid. Okay, at one corner is retardation, stupid fundamentalism, in belief in books, 2,000-year-old storytelling, fables. You got people applying logic and saying, let's see what the facts say. Let's build a telescope and a microscope and let's start dissecting this frog and seeing what makes it work. And then we got these assholes at the peak, the most people, who just say, I don't want to hear anything if it doesn't get me a box of Cheetos. I just want to know what's in it for me. And if the truth isn't convenient, if I can't use it, if I can't somehow make my responsibilities go away and my leisure expand and my ability to exploit be unlimited and my ability to say, isn't it awful, that's unacceptable, but never mean it. Never say it's unacceptable and mean it. Right. Yeah. And that's what you got. And who's the bigger assholes? Well, the retards you can't blame, sort of. So yeah, all I'm seeing is the big gaping asshole of you duplicitous game players, you convenientists who just wish to figure out a way to rewrite the truth so it makes you something.
Attention and goodbye.
Ugh, disgusting. Yes. Isn't it awful? It's unacceptable. yeah, it's unacceptable. It really is. It's unacceptable. I wouldn't accept it.